All right, welcome back to the final presentation of the Quit Quitting for Good self-sabotage course. Today, I'm going to go over everything we talked about throughout the last 8 weeks and wrap everything up and see where we started to where we are now. And I don't know if you can hear these sirens behind me, where we started to where we are now and where to go moving forward from here. Because the entire point of this whole course is that we are able to recognize and catch ourselves when we are falling into patterns of self-sabotage so that you can stop yourself from quitting and quitting on ourselves when we're quitting for the wrong reason. So this brings us right back to the beginning. All the way back in week 1 and 2, we spoke about the change loop: awareness, education, action, right? And we have to be aware of everything before we can educate ourselves on it. But the last step is always action. And that brings us right back to the beginning, because once we take action, we are able to have a new awareness and educate ourselves on new issues or new techniques or new whatever we need to then take more action. And it's a constant loop. It's a constant cycle of growth, and it's a spiral. And the idea is that with the correct levels of awareness and the correct education and the correct action, we spiral up, right? So we're always spiraling. We're either spiraling down, spiraling out, or we're spiraling up. So the idea is that hopefully through what we've talked about, what we've learned about through the activities, we have a new awareness, we have some new tools in our tool belt, and we're able to take the action towards the proper direction, towards our goals, towards that fulfilled and fulfilling life that we're looking for. But when we talk about where do we go from here, we have to understand that this is just the starting line, right? This is just the ticket of entry to a more passion-filled, fulfilled life, right? When we're talking about this stuff, this kind of more mental, cerebral stuff, this isn't lift more weight, change the weight on the scale, change the number in your bank account. This is deep, introspective, self-work stuff. And the things that we've talked about up until today have just been the ticket to entry. So looking at the change loop, I say awareness is the beginning, because that's the same thing. It's the ticket to entry. It's the cost of doing business to just have these conversations. So it's not like these things are answers when they're answered now. So it's like, okay, check it off. I've answered this. I'll never self-sabotage myself again. That's far from the case. I still struggle with these things, but it's through work like this, through reading, learning, listening, teaching, and constant repetition of these practices and these tactics that I put myself into a situation where I at least have a fighting chance to do better than most. Because I would think that if you lined me up against the average person, 100 people, 50 people, my way of dealing with hard things, my way of fighting through the mental struggles, the way that I deal with the issues, these human issues that will come up, is probably going to lead me to have more success than the average person. And that's not because I'm any smarter or better or anything like that. It's because I've practiced and I've trained myself for years to do this, to not fall into these common pitfalls and these common traps that we've been going over for the last 8 weeks. So now the point is to go forward with this as ammunition. I always say tools in your tool belt. They're still just tools, right? You can have a tool belt with a hammer, a screwdriver, a saw, and all the tools that you need. But if you don't actually use the tools, then it doesn't really matter. So this is just a jumping off point for a new part of your journey in your life to move forward with the tools that we've talked about. And going all the way back to the beginning, one of the biggest takeaways that I want you to have from this is the understanding of failure as feedback, right? And we talked all the way back in weeks 1 and 2 about failure feeling like it's final. We talked about the difference between capital F failure and little f failure, and capital F failure feeling like it's final. And that's why it elicits a fear response in us, because we fear finality and we're always craving safety. And our biological imperative is to live longer. So anything that feels like failure, big F failure, that is going to be the end of everything, is inherently a hard stop, and it is going to get us into our bag of tricks to quit and self-sabotage ourselves. In reality, we need to look at failure as feedback, like this little scientist here, right? When a scientist comes up with something that doesn't work the way they did, they don't think of it as a bad thing. They say, that was interesting. What did I do wrong, or what can I do differently, right? If I have a hypothesis and I test my hypothesis and it doesn't come out, the experiment doesn't come out like my hypothesis had guessed, that doesn't mean I was wrong. That doesn't make me a failure. That doesn't mean all hope is lost. That just goes, okay, now I know where to go from here. I know how to iterate. And next to this cute little scientist man who looks oddly like me, you'll see this snake. And if you remember, we spoke about exposure therapy. And exposure therapy would be an example like someone who's afraid of a snake, first looking at a picture of a snake, then holding a picture of a snake, then holding a rubber snake, all the way up until they can actually be in the same room with a snake and maybe even touch a snake. And this type of therapy for people's fears has been proven in countless studies to be extremely powerful and to really work. And the reason I bring this up is because this is how you need to treat failure. We need to be putting ourselves into more situations where we are going to fail, to learn that it is not the end of the world. This is why I love fitness as an analogy, because fitness is a perfect example of this. When you get into the gym, when you start to try to lift weights or go for a run or do anything that's hard and challenging on your physical body, it feels impossible. And if you fail sometimes, you try to lift a weight and it doesn't work. You try to run 5 miles and your legs give out, you get too tired and you have to stop. But what you learn is like, whoa, that was hard and I didn't do it. I failed, but it's okay. And I'm alive. And next time you try again and you do a little better. And next time you try again and you do a little better. And it's that graded exposure that trains your brain to understand like, oh, failure isn't something I need to avoid. It's something that I can lean into, and I literally get better from failure. The failure it's the opposite of being final, of being a death sentence. It is literally making you better. So we have to actually search for it and lean into it. And one overarching theme that we've talked about this entire 8 weeks has been the locus or the spheres of control, and understanding that very few things truly, when we really strip away everything else, when we really are truly honest with ourselves, very few things truly lie inside our direct sphere of control. Sphere of control meaning I can, with my own mind and my own willpower, control the entire outcome of it. And when we understand that what I can really control, which is only things that come from directly within me, my actions, my awareness, my thoughts, my words, we realize that everything else is outside of that. Anything that has to do with another person, that has to do with a business, that has to do with the economy, that has to do with money, with that, anything else that has to do with other people or other things lies outside of your direct sphere of control. And the more we can focus on the things inside our sphere of control, the less chance we have of bumping up into these frustration points that are going to eventually lead down the road of self-sabotage and quitting, because the focus on all of these things in these outer spheres lead to that frustration and those feelings of this isn't working. And that is what leads to the eventual self-sabotage, which is me saying I'm going to quit. Because remember, quitting on yourself, quitting on your goal is self-sabotage. If you quit for any other reason, then it literally was a bad goal. It literally wasn't the right thing for you. But more often than not, 99 out of 100 times, we quit for other reasons. We quit because it's too hard. We quit because it's taking too long. We quit because we thought it would be different, or all these other things. So we're trying to stay away from that. And the easiest, best way, well, not easy, it's never easy, but the best way to do that is to focus on the things that we can control, controlling the controllables. And that starts and ends with you. My sphere of control starts and ends with me. I can talk into this computer for as long as I want. I cannot control how you hear it. I cannot control how many people listen to it. I cannot control how it affects you. I cannot control anything else. All I can do is do my best to present the message as clearly and as concisely as I can, and in a way that I can be proud of. And then I have to let the universe take control after that. So if we were thinking about the slump methodology, remember SLUMP, the shoulds and the supposed tos, that's where we started. And a very brief overview, just remember that there only is what is. Anything that should, that's supposed to be, that expected, all of these things, as real as they feel to you, they feel so real, but they're not. What's real is what is. So if we can detach ourselves from that emotional attachment to these things that aren't actually true, right? Supposed fairness, justice, all of these things, they're great values to have. But in reality, we have to understand that the reality of what is what we're dealing with, because all of the discomfort in our life comes from disagreeing with reality. I should be this weight. I should have this much money. I expected to be farther along. It's not fair that this happened. It's not right that this happened. And all of these things can be true. It cannot be fair. You can be supposed to have those things. You can expect these things. But the fact that you are so emotionally attached to things that are not happening right now is a surefire way for your brain to go, this isn't fair. This energy that I'm expending on this is not worth it. We need to quit. We need to stop. We need to finish this, whatever we're doing. Right. So it's that emotional attachment to those outcomes that all opens you up to those little thought gremlins that they're going to come in and say, this isn't fair. We shouldn't be doing this. This is not right. We've tried hard enough. We've tried long enough, because you have expectations around what it should look like. So we have to respect what is reality and what is a feeling of should, supposed to. Next thing is lacking clarity, because your brain craves a clear, defined mission. It wants clarity around what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What are the results that I'm going to get? So you need to know what are the steps that are going to take you forward and backwards, right? When we talked about lacking clarity in week 4, we spoke about starting with the end in mind, so you know exactly where you're going, but then reverse engineering that from the end all the way back to where you are today, so that you have a process in place, so you understand, okay, what are the steps I need to take? Where am I going and why? Because a confused mind is a mind that quits. A confused mind has plenty of excuses, has plenty of ammunition to say, this is stupid. I don't need this. I quit. Right? If you're trying to lose weight, this is why education is the second piece of the change loop. Because even if you're trying to lose weight, if it's not working the way that you think it should, right? Going back to the previous slide, if you understand with clarity the reason why, you have more chance of sticking through it. Meaning, say someone starts a diet and it's been 3 weeks and they haven't lost any weight, and they feel in their heart like, I should have lost more weight by now. I'm dieting. This is hard. I was supposed to lose weight. They'll want to quit. But by having clarity and understanding that, well, weight loss doesn't always work like that sometimes. And I understand, because of the education that I have, that sometimes weight loss is very slow in the first few weeks and then it kind of ramps up. That clarity will allow them to stick with it rather than quitting because they've gotten in their own way. So we need to have the clear, defined mission and steps and vision of, okay, where am I going? How am I getting there? And why is this important? But when we talk about clarity, we have to make sure that we don't take that too far to an extreme and look for 100% certainty. Because your brain is always looking for certainty, right? Certainty is safety. Safety is certainty. And we know that we're always looking for safety because that is what our body is designed to do. And certainty is knowing with 100% positive certainty that an action is going to get you a result. But we know that this is not the case, right? We know that outside of our sphere of control are results. Inside of our sphere of control are actions. Outside of our sphere of control are results. You can do all the work, and sometimes the results don't come the way that you wanted them or felt that they should or whatever else, right? We know that. So now, when we have too much attachment to certainty, that is a direct reason for, again, thought gremlins, self-sabotage, eventually quitting, because we are seeking something that we don't have direct control over. And that puts us at a disconnect. So if we are always looking for certainty, that keeps us trapped on that rat wheel that we're just going. We feel like we're doing a lot, but we're not actually getting anywhere because we're searching for something that doesn't really exist, right? And eventually your brain doesn't like this deal. It doesn't like doing work and not getting the result. It wants certainty and it's looking for it. And if it doesn't find it, it's going to say, hey, this isn't fair. This is silly. We should quit. Okay. It's the same loop. Everything comes back to your brain trying to protect you, thinking that it's protecting you. But in reality, it's protecting you from actually achieving anything by trying to be certain in an uncertain world. The M is money mindset, right? And we have to remember that while yes, money is important, it is not the most important thing. And regardless of what society tells us and how things operate right now, where we do need certain levels of money and certain amounts of financial security, no matter what, deep down, whatever you want to call it, our brain, our gut, our soul knows that time is more important. There are certain things that light us up more. And those are the things that we need to, if not focus on, give credence to. We need to be spending time doing the things that are good for us, not just good for our bank account, right? Because when we focus too much on money, we actually end up getting less of it. I'm not sitting here telling you not to get money. We all need it. What I'm saying is that when we are focused on too much on one specific result, we actually sabotage ourselves from getting it. And this is the same principle with this whole thing. So if I'm living in scarcity where I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm so worried about, and again, not just money. I'm so worried about everything. I can't work with other people because I need to get for myself. I can't give to charity because I need everything for me. We live in a world of scarcity that puts a box around what's possible in our mind. Whereas when we live in a world of abundance and we understand that regardless of if we feel we have enough right now, there is enough out there. The universe is abundant and there is more of everything and enough for everyone. It's a calming effect that will allow your brain to take a few steps back, because this is about anxiety and how our thoughts around money and time make us feel. Meaning when I'm always thinking about, I don't have enough money right now, that's a very hard thing for my brain to wrap itself around. When I understand that most of the things that I need to do for my success, whether it be financial success, health success, life success, they take a long time period, right? So for me to make a successful business is going to take years. For someone to change their body and lose a ton of weight or build muscle in a way that's, that they want to, or for someone to create a healthy relationship with their parent or with their significant other, all of these things are 6-month, 10-month, 12-month, 10-year horizons. They're a long time period where your money mindset is usually focused on right now. It's like, okay, I need more money now. Like that, because again, we live in a society where I have bills to pay now, but we have to try to, as much as possible, detach from that and understand that what we're doing now, even if it doesn't pay off as specifically financially, right? Reading a book might not make me money, but it's going to make my life better down the road. Meditating might not make me money, but it's going to make my life better down the road. So we have to get away from this hyper focus on money, because all that does is lead to overwhelm, stress, burnout, which will eventually lead to self-sabotage and quitting, which then in a roundabout way actually leads to having less money. So that's the thing. We think that it's like, well, I still need money. I have to focus on money, but you actually end up making less, because if you quit on yourself, you will never get to where you need to be. So we have to take a step back and think of the long game and realize that yes, money is important, but it's not the most important thing. And the P is perfectionism. And we just have to come to grips with the fact that perfection is unobtainable. It is not real. It does not actually exist. There is no perfection in life. And what perfectionism then becomes is simply a reason not to take action. It becomes the perfect excuse not to follow through on your goals or to need to quit. Oh, if I can't do it perfectly, then I don't have to start, or I can't start until I can get it perfect, right? So it doesn't sound like quitting. It sounds like I'm just trying to get everything perfectly. But in reality, you're just quitting on yourself before you even started, right? Or trying, and then giving up because you can't get it to be perfect, right? But in reality, if you are holding yourself to a standard where perfection is what you're going for, you're already saying you're quitting on yourself because you're asking for something that is not possible. So we have to realize that perfection never comes. It just is impossible. We have to take imperfect action. We have to be able to take action and say, I'm going to be good enough is good enough. Right? We talked about the tattoo rule when it came to uncertainty. Uncertainty and perfectionism are very, very linked to each other. So we have to say like, yes, we want to do our research. Yes, we want to be aware. Yes, we want to be educated. But the last step is action. And perfectionism is what holds us back from action, because you're stuck in that loop of those first two: awareness, education, awareness, education, awareness, education, but you're never taking action. And without action, nothing matters. That's the reason that the change loop exists. It's a loop, and all three pieces are equally important. You cannot have one without the other. If you don't take action, awareness and education mean nothing. You end up just being the person who's just learning, taking in, but they're never actually getting anywhere because they just need to be a little bit more ready. They just need to figure out that last little piece, but that's not real. This is your brain trying to keep you safe, self-sabotaging you, but you have to understand that you're good enough is good enough. So when this happens, right? And that's the whole thing about this stuff. I said in week 1, this is not you versus anyone else. This is no competition here. It's not you versus you. This is you versus human nature. It's not like you're trying to sabotage yourself. It is that human nature is to make all of these things happen. Human nature is to keep you safe. Human nature is to avoid hard things. Human nature is to sabotage you when you're just at the brink of actually making something of yourself, because it's the safe thing to do. So it's not a question of if these things will happen, it's a question of when. And when these things happen, there's questions that we can ask, right? So when I find myself, I'm doing it, I've been doing the work, and I'm feeling like, oh, I think this is time. I want to quit. This is too hard. I'm ready to give up. This isn't it for me. Do a check with the slump methodology, right? Am I shooting on myself? Am I holding myself to a standard of what should happen? Are there expectations at play here? Is that why I'm wanting to quit? Is there a lack of clarity somewhere? Is it because I have unclear or ambiguous goals, right? I'm just like kind of floating there trying to be better, but I don't even know what better means. And that gives my brain a reason to say like, well, what are we even doing here? Am I stuck on certainty? Am I unable to take imperfect action because I'm waiting to be 100% certain that things are going to work out the way that I want, or that I'm 100% certain that I'm doing the right thing? Is my money mindset in scarcity, right? Am I so focused on what's happening right now in the short term that I'm losing sight of the long term? What would it look like if I was living in abundance? Would this still be such a problem for me if I had an abundant mindset? Am I holding myself to an unrealistic standard of perfection? Am I either stopping myself from starting at all, or am I maybe not taking the next steps, or am I keeping myself stuck in a cycle of education only because I'm trying to get everything to be perfect, which is an unrealistic standard? And there's many more. These are just some quick examples. So, but these are the type of things that I use to check myself to see, is this really me getting in my own way? Because that's the real question we're looking for here. Is sometimes there are reasons to stop whatever thing you're doing, or to not start. Sometimes there are reasons that, you try a new business model and it doesn't work. It's just not the right thing. And there's a good reason to pivot. But sometimes it's because, you have unrealistic expectations of what of what it was supposed to look like, because you didn't have a clear goal of what the end point was going to be. So there's lots of times where you have a good idea, you are on the right path, but your brain will talk you out of it before you actually get the chance to see the fruit that this bears. And that's what we're trying to get around here. So remember that all of this stuff though, right? This is just what I was saying. There is quitting for the right reason is fine. Even though this is all internal work, and it's hard because there's no one answer, right? And that's why you have to be honest with yourself. Because again, we can quit for the right reason, you can quit for the wrong reason. But sometimes sticking with something too long for the wrong reason is the same thing, right? So if I'm just like, well, no, I gotta see this through. I gotta make sure that I get I can't be a quitter. I gotta make sure that I see this to the end. It's like, if that is for the wrong reasons, right? You're just holding on to something that isn't working. That could be an example of perfectionism rearing its head, right? Oh, well, I committed to this, so I have to, I'm the type of person who always, follows through. So I've got to follow through on this, but sometimes things don't warrant follow through. So realize that it's hard to see when these things are happening, but it starts with a level of self-honesty, because usually in my experience, working with myself and working with hundreds and hundreds of clients, we know deep down when it's the right thing. We know deep down, if we're being honest with ourselves, when it's the right time or not, when we're quitting on ourselves, or when we're just quitting because it's too hard, or when we're quitting for the right reason. So there is a level of self-honesty that, you just have to be able to realize that there's no one answer for this. There's no metric. There's no specific thing to test. Okay, am I quitting for the right reason or not? You need to be honest with yourself. So a lot of what I want for you to take away from this is, we talked about the circle of control. We talked about the fear of failure and things like that. And in my experience in life, there are three types of people. There's the victim, the worker, and the achiever. And we talked about this before. The victim has what we call a have, do, be mentality. When I have the time, then I'll do the work, and finally I'll be successful. Or when I have the money, then I'll invest, and then I'll be rich. I need to have it before I do the action to become the person. The worker takes a slightly different route, which is, I'm going to do the work so that I can have the money, and then I can be successful. I'm going to do the hard thing so that I can have the time, and then I can be happy with my family. But in reality, the people who achieve the most, the people who are most successful, the people who really have everything in life. And again, when I say success, it doesn't have to be financial success. I just mean a feeling of success, a feeling of happiness, a feeling of fulfillment, right? Fulfillment and passion. These are all the things that we're looking for. These people start by being. Be the person who does the thing, and that will lead to you having the result, right? If you want to be fit, it's not about, okay, when I have time to work out, then I'll be fit. Or if I just work hard, then I'll, then I'll do it. Yet, like, those things are important. But in reality, the fastest way to become a healthy, fit person is to think, what would a healthy, fit person be? And do and be and live that person, adopt that lifestyle of that person, internalize it, right? What would a successful person be? How would a successful person be? How would a good parent be? How would, all of this stuff. But the reason I bring this up now is because to understand that, again, it starts within. This is all internal work. And it starts with making a decision towards being the person that you want to be in the future. Right. And this is why we started in the beginning with the 5-year plan and searching for what does a passion-filled life look like for me? And we look into the future, right? That's creating clarity. But then we come back to today and we realize, how can I live today as if I were already that person? And that's what the highest achieving, most successful people do, is they see the person they want to be in the future and they live their life as if they were that person today. So from here, again, this is just the jumping off point. I want you to, all of the materials that we've used throughout these 8 weeks are yours to keep. You have the videos of all of these Zooms. You also have the resources, all of the worksheets, the printouts, all of the different things we've used. So I encourage you to refer back to this stuff as much as you'd like. I encourage you to use the resources, things like the obituary, the 5-year plan, the MVP worksheet. All of these things were made to be done a lot. So the MVP worksheet is meant to be done daily. The 5-year plan or the obituary worksheets I like to do them at least quarterly, if not semi-annually. And these are a great way to check in with yourself, right? So you do a worksheet like the 5-year plan. Okay, where do I want to be 5 years from now? And all this other stuff. And you start to break that down into action steps. And then you're doing your daily routines or whatever. And then 6 months later, you do it again to check back. Am I still going in the right direction? Is the thing I said 6 months ago still the person that I want to be today? Because sometimes things change. Again, it's not quitting because it's like it was too hard or something, but sometimes you try it for 6 months and you learn like, hey, this actually isn't the place that I want to be. Or, oh, I've made a lot of progress in that area. I think I'm going to slow down on how much effort and energy I put into one area of my life and shift that to another. That's a great way to be. But we need these constant check-ins to be realigning ourselves with our values. And I refer back to my core values all the time. I have them written out on a whiteboard. I have them all over my phone background, my computer background. I encourage you to use the core values, use the worksheets, use them when you're making your big decisions, when you are making these changes, and when you're going back and analyzing this stuff. This is all just tools for you to be able to take action. My hope here is that I've equipped you with some more awareness and plenty of education around what to do. And now you have more tools in your tool belt, and you can go forward with those and feel more confident around working on yourself, working on whatever projects you're working on, doing hard things, and knowing that you have the wherewithal to persevere when things get hard, when you struggle, when you're facing failure or whatever else it is. If you're interested in learning more about any of the stuff that I do at the Happy Healthy Human Academy, you can check out my course Mindset Shift, and that's all about the actual tactical side of building habits and actually creating that life. We've talked a lot about now these last few weeks about figuring out what does a passion-filled life look like? How can you work through things when you want to quit, when your brain is self-sabotaging on you? So Mindset Shift is more about, okay, how do we actually build habits? How do we use this in a tactical way to create that life moving forward? And if you're interested, you can always inquire about one-on-one coaching directly with me. If that's something you're interested in, I'll be following up with some emails to everyone and seeing if that's something that you're interested in. If not, I thank everyone so much for being here, for your time and for your energy. And I really hope that you took something away from this course, because I learned a lot just from putting it together and teaching it. And I'm so thankful for everyone here. Thank you very, very much.